All right, let's see what happens. Are we live or not? Okay. Final attempt at this live, let's see what happens. No, 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 do not open new things. No, 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 do not open new things. All right, well, it seems like it's working. I don't know. No, 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 do not open new things. All right, well, it seems like it's working. I don't know. No, 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 do not open. No, it's fine. It's recursive. Okay, let's see what we do here. Stupid technical difficulties, man, I tell you. Wait a couple minutes, see if anyone joins. Otherwise, I'm just going to throw in the towel on this one. Yeah, I'm getting really. Wait a couple minutes, see if anyone joins. Yeah, I'll give it like 3 or 4 minutes. Oh my fucking god, seriously. Come on. Please message in the chat if you're joining in, comma. Hopefully we get some of you. Let's see how much chat delay I'm getting too. Why does it keep trying to open new things? Just stop. Oh my god. I need a new computer. I think we're about ready to give up on these damn lives. I'm really about ready to give up on these lives in general. I need to talk to somebody who knows more about this stuff than I do, because this is just... Seems like I'm having constant technical difficulties with this. Never friggin' works. It's exhausting to deal with, honestly. I don't want all messages. I want all messages. Not just live. Okay, I'm going to give this one more minute and then I'm calling it a day. This is just not working. Nah, I don't know. Maybe move the live day. Oh, hey, Will. Looks like someone joined in. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this stupid software. It's been terrible today. Yeah, see, it's crazy because on the YouTube app on my phone, I see your chat, but I'm still not seeing it on my deck here with, what is it, OBS that I'm using as my streaming software. Wow, that message just now showed up and I sent that like 6 minutes ago for chat. Well, thanks, Will. All right, so to give you kind of what's going on my end, I'm only just now seeing a chat message I sent about 6 minutes ago. The only reason I even see your chat is because it's on my phone too. So this is just a bit, it's just frustrating. You know, not very good at this, obviously. I'm trying to figure this stuff out as I go. I need to do some more homework and research, but looks like we got some people here, so I'd love to, I wonder if that's just you actually, because I wonder if that other concurrent viewer is me on my phone technically. Give me 1 second, well, I just want to check something here. Is that concurrent viewer just me on my phone technically? Yeah, what is with this thing today? Live chat, top chat. Okay, yeah, so what it looks like is it's just showing, okay, well, there's a third person maybe? I can't freaking tell. Chat, if you could, just let me know who's here. Like I said, I am having some real technical issues. There's a couple of you. I'll go ahead and press on. Yeah, I don't know what's been going on with this thing today. It's having a lot of tech issues. That's all I can say. Try and check the delay between the app and my phone here. There's got to be a better way of doing this than OBS Studio. It does not seem to, yeah, oh my gosh, I'm running on like a 20-second delay, it seems like. All right, well, what do you say? Shall we dive in? Just give me a yes if we're ready to go, chat, and I will do my best to get through this. Okay, cool. Thank you, Will. All right, let's dive into... Oh, hey, Toon. Good to see you. All righty, let's dive into the show and the situation report. Please do not crash on me, computer. All right, so the show. Our events. First off is a max log. And then it is a deadlift medley. A yoke run. Oh, why did it go? I really need to buy a better computer. Yoke run. A farmer's to Husafelt. And then a max sandbag to shoulder. Now the log opening weight is going to be 220 pounds with 20-pound jumps. So 220, 240, 260, 280, so on and so forth. The deadlift medley, this one's kind of interesting. How it's going to work is there are 3 bars. The first bar is a power bar. The second one is a Texas deadlift bar. And the third one is a Kabuki deadlift bar. The Kabuki bar has a little more flex than the Texas deadlift bar, which obviously has more flex than the power bar. So you'll do 1 rep on the first 2 bars, and then max reps in the remaining time on the final bar. Third event is a yoke run. I want to say it's 100 feet. I don't quite remember. Regardless, that's the weight. Then it is a 50-foot, I believe, farmer's walk per hand down at 250 a hand. And then the Roosevelt at 255 coming back. And then the max weight stone to shoulder. They do not have any of the information listed as far as how heavy we are going with the bag to shoulder. And what I'll do too is I'll go ahead and I'm going to kind of put in some metric for you guys. So we open at 100 kilos here. And then, deadlift bar goes 211, 233, then 256. Yoke is going to be roughly 295. Farmer's walk handles 113. Husafelt 114. And then TBD on the bag to shoulder. Right. So that is the brief overview of the events there. Let me actually pull up the distances as well. Yeah, Will, it's true. The deadlift ladder with different bars, that's kind of a unique approach. I've seen it done where you might go axle, deadlift bar, trap bar. In this case, having it be 3 different straight bar variants, especially with the last 2 being so similar, that's kind of a unique one to me. My suspicion is they recently just got their hands on the Kabuki deadlift bar and really want to show it off, which, hey, no hate on my end. I love a good deadlift bar. And I know the Kabuki definitely has more flex than a Texas bar. I myself, my training gym, I pull on the Norse Fitness deadlift bar, which kind of sits in between a Texas and a Kabuki. I think it's a little closer to the Texas between the two. So it's got a good bit of whip to it, but it's not as noodly as the Kabuki. I know for myself, the Kabuki, I have an easier time getting it off the ground. I just have to be very mindful of around the mid-shin to below the knee transition because I don't want to pop a hamstring. But I've managed to really get a lot more patient with my pull off the floor too, so that way I don't get ripped out of position as easily. I think that's been one of the big benefits of doing all the deficit work I have been. And then also doing some more low block pulls leading into this next competition as part of my deadlift cycle will also be very beneficial. Okay, I'm getting some distances for everyone too here. Yeah, okay, yoke. I was right, so it's about 100 feet or roughly 30 meters. Right there. Husafelt, yep. Oh, wow. So I actually did remember everything pretty reasonably here. So then was that roughly 17 meters? Yeah. Cool. All right, there we go. So that is our event situation. Now let's talk about kind of where I'm at and how I will approach each event. The first one, the log opens at 220 pounds or 100 kilos. My most recent heavy log set, I was able to push press on the log 215. My best log I've ever done is 250 or, I'm going to say everything in imperial. Sorry, guys, I'm not that good at metric. I'll try to splinter it as I can. But my best log push jerk is 250. So on this one here, I look at my jumps, 220, 240, 260, 280. My mindset is I need to get a lot of skill work in with the push jerk because that's going to be my best bet. Maybe even a split jerk. I'd have to practice that a bit more relative to the push jerk. So how I'm going to do that is for the first time in a long time, I'm actually going to be doing the log twice a week. I don't like doing the log very often because honestly it does beat me up a little bit, but in this case I need a lot of skill development, but I'm also going to be training relatively low volume. And how I'm going to attack the log is nothing too fancy here. What I'm going to do is twice a week, I have a 3-week wave that I'm adhering to. I'll do 3 triples at 70% of my best log, and then from there work up to a 3-rep max. Then 4 doubles at 75% my best log, work up to a 2-rep max, and then 6 singles at 80%, and then work up to a 1-rep max. It's a simple 3-week wave, and I'll wind up repeating that, 2 times through entirely, and then I'll start a deload after a 3-rep max. So that'll do that log workout twice a week, nice and simple, nothing complicated. And the thing here is I want a lot of first touches, and I don't want to do a ton of volume. I just want to work at those higher intensity thresholds and work up how I feel on the day. Because I'm using a push jerk, I treat the log more like an Olympic lift as opposed to a traditional strength lift. And if you look at Olympic lifters, they work at a much higher percentages of 1RM and far more frequently. And you can get away with that because there's not as much eccentric loading, less time under tension, so it can generate a lot less recovery debt as a result. So log programming is going to be as simple as humanly possible. My goal here, I would love if I could squeak out a 260 or so log. And if I look at my competition right now, there's one guy. So that's a split jerk, what you're asking about there, William. So a push jerk is where you push it and kind of force yourself into a quarter squat underneath it. With the one leg coming back, with the leg splaying out more, that's a split jerk. The split jerk works really well on the log and axle if you are versed in it. I'm not. It's one of those things where if I were in a longer off season, I'd probably practice it more and I might monkey with it a little bit. But my best split jerk on the log is 240. My best push jerk is 250. And I want to dance with who brought me. And especially with only 9 weeks of prep, really 7 because I deload 2 weeks out. I want to stick to what I'm already best at. And because I've been doing a lot of strict press and a moderate amount of push press, it's easier to translate those over to the push jerk because all that changes is adding that double dip where I rebend my knees as opposed to shoving one leg forward and one leg back in the split jerk. If it were an axle, I'd be split jerking all day long. It's a lot easier to transfer over footwork just because the rack position is more comfortable, more familiar versus the log, which really tries to fold you. So that's the difference there. So with my log, like I said, relatively low volume each day, but higher intensity, so I can feel the heavier weight in the rack position, get used to the clean. I want to not build up too much fatigue by doing a lot of volume. So that's the log. All right, deadlift. Honestly, this is probably going to be, anyways, cycling back, right, log. So, 220, 240, 260, 280. If I look at my competition, I think 240 to 260 is where a lot of people are going to wind up. There's one guy who I think will probably break 280 in our field. He's going to win that press. He's a very good dynamic presser. He's great at moving events as well. So here, we're going to aim for 260. And let's say I finish, let's say I just tie with everyone for second place there. There's 4 of us right now, so I was at 3.5 points right there. Anyways, that's kind of where I'm looking at on the log. This is hands down going to be my weakest event going into it because I'm not a very good presser. But if I can refine my technique really quickly, that's going to be my best bet. I've built a lot of strength on my static presses in the off season, just improving my bench, my dumbbell pressing, my dips. All of that has transference. Now I need to adapt skill. Moving on to the deadlift medley here. This is going to be my best event, hands down. I'm feeling very good about this event. If I look at these loads, the first bar, 465 on a power bar, that's going to be very easy for me. I'm already looking past that. 515 on a deadlift bar, also not very difficult for me to do. The 565 for reps, that's heavy. That's a lot of weight. And I think my main advantage in this event is going to be the fact that I actually use a hook grip. So what that means for me is I'm going to spend less time setting up at each bar. I can set my thumbs and go. I'm not futzing with my straps. And especially on the first 2 bars, the power bar and the deadlift bar, I might even pull that very first bar with a quick grip and rip mixed grip because of how low of a weight it is relative to my maximum. It's less than 80% of my best, so it's not going to be a very challenging load. Then 515, again, not overly heavy for me because it's not even 90%, it's closer to 85%. 565, that's a challenging weight. My best performance with that weight, I believe I've done that for a triple from the floor. And I would wager right now I could probably get it for more than that. As far as training the deadlift goes here, you'll see what I've done is I'm starting with a 2 mat pull, then a 1 mat pull, and then floor pulls. And by mats, I'm referring to just mats that I'm stacking, so low block pulls. Because if you remember, I'm still trying to chase down my 635-pound deadlift, and that is a higher priority for me at the moment than this individual deadlift event because of where the weights are relative to where I'm at. So, for example, tomorrow, I'm going to work up to a set of 545 for 3 or more reps, and where my deadlift fails, where I stall is not right off the ground, but it's mid-shin to below the knee, so the mat pulls are going to put me in that similar position and slightly disadvantage me, so then I can train my weak spot in the deadlift. Does that make sense? Just give me a thumbs up in the chat if you're still with me here, and then I will move on to discussing the yoke run, because this is where things get a little complicated for me. That's a really good question, Will. Honestly, it doesn't for me. I've just never had issue pulling hook grip for reps. I think it's one of those things, I was just born lucky in that respect with my grip. Oh, no worries, Brandon. So welcome everyone, Brandon, to the chat. For me personally, my grip recovers very quickly. I've got a very efficient stroke on the deadlift too, so it's not a lot of time under tension. And then with this, because it is a competitive situation, I am going to be using a slightly faster eccentric on the deadlift. Not going to lose all my tension because I do believe that you should control your eccentrics because that'll actually help you coil the spring to get more reps. I'll also naturally be watching the judging, seeing what the up and down calls look like, because if they're allowing touch and go, obviously I'm going to touch and go. And I imagine I won't be finishing last on the log press, so I'll have at least one person ahead of me, so that way I can go, okay, based off how they were getting the up and down commands, I can adjust accordingly from that. And that's something that I think people don't think about with Strongman is the judges are human. You want to see what the judging looks like before you make your entire game plan. So I'm going to be training with controlled stops, but if come competition day they're allowing touch and go, you better believe I'm going to touch and go. Oh, I agree, Derek. It's going to be one hell of a show. I'm just fighting to finish on the podium and not be sitting there sobbing on the turf. All right, yoke run. Yoke run is 650 pounds or 295 kilos for 100 feet or roughly 30 meters. I do not have a yoke. So how I'm going to be training it is using a camber bar with the spud swing straps hanging off of it. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to be using a protocol really similar to what I used with Derek to get him ready for USS Nationals, where we're just doing sets at the top of every minute at a fixed weight. So for example, in week 1 here, I'm going to do 6 runs at 100 feet at the top of every third minute. So it's 18 minutes. I like time domain programming for moving events because honestly, I tend to lollygag if I don't give myself that restraint. So it's just in, out, get the work done. And then the goal is to add a little weight every single week. Now, because I'm on strap yokes, they're not quite the same as an actual yoke. I actually find that the strap yokes are a bit more difficult. They're also more of a nuisance to get into and out of position with, but we make it work. And my goal will be 2 weeks out to work up to the point that I'm doing a run at 90% comp weight or 585 right there. So that's, this is where I'm starting at 360. I want to end at 585. And then what I'll probably do every couple weeks here is take a week off from yoke just because it does tend to beat me up a little bit. And let's say I take 90-pound jumps. That's actually too aggressive. We don't need to take that aggressive of jumps. So let's make it 70-pound jumps. 510, right? Then we take another 70 off that. That's 440. Okay, so give or take. We take more aggressive jumps later on. I'll probably monkey with those numbers a little bit. 40, 440, 480. I'll play with those numbers a little bit there. And then what I'll do is it'll be 6 rounds here, and then I'm going to drop these down to 4 runs, and then this will be 2 runs. And again, I'm going to cut the yoke out a couple weeks beforehand, except, actually, we'll do 1 run here, make that 585. So then that way, I get 1 more week to kind of play with it, and then I could do a run at, let's say, 550 here, take a slightly larger jump after that off week. There we go. That's how I will approach yoke training. Time domain programming, nice and simple. Nothing much to say about it. And then if you'll notice, before I do my yoke work, I have a deadlift stance camber bar box squat. I did a reel about this movement on my YouTube my Instagram. Reason I'm picking this particular movement is the camber bar box squat is going to have a ton of transference to my deadlift as well as to my yoke runs and even my walking cycle for the farmer's walks. That camber bar is going to swing all over the place, so I'm going to have to really learn how to get that locked in rigid midline to help me with my yoke run. The narrower stance, that's going to help my leg drive in the deadlift. And then the box keeps me from beating up my hips and low back too much so I don't make too much inroads against my recovery. And it's just going to be one big set, anywhere between 10 to 15 reps. And every time I'm successful, I'm just going to slap on another 10 to 20 pounds based off how I felt. Standard linear progression here. The squat is not my focus movement here. I'm mainly using this to warm myself up and also generate just a little fatigue going into the yoke run. And the reason why I want to have a little fatigue going into my yoke run is come competition day, I won't be at 100% for the yoke. I'll have had the log and the deadlift medley leading into the event. So I want to train under very slight controllable fatigue, not so much fatigue that I get hurt, obviously, but enough that I'm not going into it at my absolute best, since I'm not going to be at my absolute best come competition day. I'm working on the floor of my strength and ability. So that's where the camber bar box squat is going to slot in. All right, farmers in Husafeld. I do not have a Husafeld stone. So what I'll be doing here is I do have a sandbag, which is roughly 180 pounds, or right about, what is that, 85 kilo. So I'll probably do some warm-up runs on that. But beyond that, what I'm going to do with these two events here is I'm actually not going to train the farmers in Husafeld together. I'm going to train farmers one week, Husafeld the other. And the reason I'm doing that is because this event is another one that I feel really good going into it. You know, even without training the Husafeld, it's one that I've done really well on. I do well on front carries because I do a lot of Zercher and front squatting movements. And the farmer's walk has always been an event that, again, I've done really well on. And the reason why that event tends to treat me well, I've got super long arms, strong grip, so I don't need to spend a lot of energy on it to maintain a base level of ability. Obviously, I do want to get some work in here. And just like with the yoke, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to end my training wave hitting roughly 90% of comp weight on everything. So 225 on the farmers, and 225 on the Husafeld. Let's see here. So farmers, we can start off, we'll probably start off at 200 here. Then we'll skip a week, 220, skip a week to, I go a little heavier, why not? Something like that. And then Husafeld. If I don't have the sandbag, what I'll be doing instead is I'll take some bumper plates and load them onto a pin, put that on a stool, and just bear hug that abomination, sort of like a poor man's keg, and do some runs with that. And with that load, we're going to do a similar thing. We're just going to stagger with the farmer's walk like that. And then this week, I'll skip both of them. And then the final week before, actually, no. Because this starts our deload week, so we'll do light touch there. And then this week, we'll go heavy on both of them. There we go. I like that. So we're staggering those two back and forth, going a little heavier each week. And then in week 7, before we get into deload, I'll do one dry run at competition weight. And how I'm going to approach this one here is I'm going to use a similar approach to the yoke run. We're using that time domain work. Now, because it is a lower distance of only 50 feet, I think I can get away with an every 2-minute methodology for these guys. And then again, we'll do 6-week waves, then we'll do 6 run waves, then we'll do 4 run waves, and then 2 run waves. Just like that. And based off how it feels, I would add in something like doing extra picks before my run, or do a hold, pick, hold, run. That's going to be the reactive side of coaching. Right now, this is more, I'm prescribing everything, but then as I get into it, I need to figure out what issues do I see emerge, what strengths do I see develop over the course of this. That way I can best work around it. Like I always love to say, training is not an algebra equation because the human factor of it is such a complex equation. All right, so that covers our farmers and Husafeld. Sandbag to shoulder. I'm a little stuck on this one because I don't have access to heavy enough sandbags. I'm not going to buy one either if I'm going to be super real with you. I might try to borrow one off of a friend. Maybe I'll get a day pass to a local Strongman facility. But barring that, the move here is I'm actually going to train heavy Turkish get-ups. Not that it's going to have a one-to-one transference to the sandbag to shoulder, but what it's going to do is strengthen rotational and anti-rotational strength while also getting me used to those awkward, uncomfortable, and janky positions that are going to be mandated by bag to shoulder. I'm also going to do some complex work with my sandbag, one motion to shoulder, squats, even shoulder lunges, things of that ilk, just to get me used to being in a miserable position with the sandbag. I'm going to slot in the Turkish get-ups on my upper max effort day. And the reason why I'm putting those in there is they just fit in really nicely in terms of where they're going to go. Plus, I know on my upper max effort day, I'm going to be wearing knee sleeves as well as my lifting shoes with a heel in them. And I'm going to want that for the loading event as well. Oh yeah, so a Turkish get-up, Will, pretty much you start out just laying on the ground. You press the weight, roll up, and you pretty much just go with the weight all the way to standing from the floor is what a Turkish get-up is. Just a great all-around awkward movement. They're not, if you know what you're doing, they're very graceful. In my case, I want to do them specifically because it's going to be ugly, janky, and put me in very uncomfortable positions that I don't like being in. That way I can at least get used to being in odd positions. So that'll have that carryover. Plus, I find it's just a good all-around exercise. I honestly love the Turkish get-up. I think more strongman athletes should be doing them. They're a great warm-up drill as well. If you're looking for a quick integration protocol for them, look up Simple and Sinister. That's a really great way to sprinkle in. I've done that. I've had phases where I do that as my warm-up before I get to my main workout. It's treated me really well. Great for mobility. And in my case, I'm using them for stability and just embracing the suck in terms of my bag to shoulder work. We'll also put on upper dynamic work, sandbag complex. That'll be a good end of week training thing there. Cool. No, I actually have never done bag to shoulder in a competition. It's something I've trained in the past here and there, and I've actually done a lot of stone to shoulder. So there's going to be some similarities there. The main difference I'm going to find is the bag will not roll, right? It's going to be a lot more futzy. I'm going to have to inch it up my body depending on how heavy it is. And I'm not going to have tacky, obviously. So the grip side of it's going to be a little more complicated. I'm going to need that nice kind of anaconda type strength so I can really get a tight grip on it like a vice. So some accessory movements I'm definitely going to think about putting in here. Something such as a dip, because that's going to help with pec strength, which helps bring the arms in across the center line for the bear hug, right? Also, I just love doing dips. I'm going to need a lot of upper and mid back to get through this show. That's something I'm always harping on, though, is strengthening the upper and mid back. So those would be the big things there. So let me go ahead and we can actually put in some dips on the developmental day. That'll slot in beautifully right there. Logs, dips, sandbag complex. All right, cool. So that's kind of the overview of the event training. I've got some ideas here. Now let's start slotting in some accessory work, shall we? Any questions so far before I dive in, chat? And Will, I appreciate all the questions, man. Makes it more fun for me. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, doesn't look like there's too many questions, so I'm just going to go ahead and keep rolling, everybody. Yeah, okay, stream's still good, so guess y'all are just so enthralled by my talking here. All right, let's talk about accessory work here. Again, if we look at my priorities, I need pressing strength. I need upper and mid back to keep me from falling apart, especially with the yoke, the deadlifts, the farmer's carry. It's going to be a lot of back. Oh, yeah. You know, Will, it's one of those things, too. Training strongman, I think part of the fun is not having the kit and figuring it out as you go. I'm going to sidetrack for a little bit and tell you all a really fun anecdote from way back when I first got into the sport. Atlas stone training didn't have any sort of implements, and I had clients competing at a strongman show. So I was figuring, all right, how do we train the Atlas stone? So what I had them do is we took an exercise ball and they'd bear hug it and we'd go over to the cable stack. While bear hugging the exercise ball, they'd have the rope handle. So they do extensions, bear hugging the ball and holding onto the rope handle, right? So it looks really weird. Worked pretty well, though. And I'll never forget, I was talking to Rachel Pyron, who I believe at the time was the #4 lightweight strong woman in the world. And she was asking me, hey, Mark, how did you train your people for this show? Because I know you guys don't have stones at the gym that you train out of. So I demoed the movement to her, explaining how I just had them bear hug the ball and do the extensions. She looked at me like I had two heads. I believe what she said was, well, that's really creative. It was really kind of the way she phrased it, but all I could think was, you're either a genius or a moron, is kind of the undertone I got from that. And I think it was Charles Poliquin who said it best, it's only stupid if it doesn't work. And, you know, if you are training strongman adjacent without actually having access to the implements, overhead press, front squats, deadlifts, super high rep rows, lots of shrugs, carries, pick stuff up, carry it around, put it overhead. Those are really your big movements for the strongman athlete. Now, talking about what I need. Pressing strength. I need upper and mid back to keep myself from folding. Strengthen my legs a little bit more. Nothing too crazy, honestly. So we can tune my accessory work in that regard. So, lower max effort, I'll have my deadlift variation. Then I'm going to do a camber bar good morning for 2 heavy sets, let's say 5 to 8 reps. Nothing too fancy there. If I top out the rep range, I'll go a little heavier next time. Not much. Then I'll do my moving event of choice thereafter. Then after that, I want to think, okay, I've done a lot of compression on my low back, so now we're going to add in some pull-ups here. And with the pull-ups, if I want to use straps, I'm going to use straps. I'll likely do a heavier pull-up on this day. You read my ebook, I've got that conjugate calisthenics. I've got an example of how I go about programming that. But in short, I'll work up to a heavy pull-up variation and then do 2 back-off cluster sets. And the reason why I want to do that is the pull-ups will be nice. They will stretch out my low back a little bit. Plus, they'll work my upper back, my lats, and bicepticons. And being jacked is always a good idea. And I just want to get better at calisthenics in general. So I'm going to throw those in. And then after that, we'll do some flexion ab work. So this could be cable crunches, leg raises, anything like that. That way I get a nice stretch through my low back. I'm going to feel a little less beat up, reduce the inroads against my recovery. So if I do that, 1, 2, 3, 4, that is 5 total movements there. So that's a pretty decent amount there. Maybe sprinkle in some calf work just for ankle stability, but the odds are good I'll skip it, let's be honest. All right. Now, for the upper max effort day, I've got my log wave already plotted out. I'm recycling it for 2 days a week just to keep things very simple. I just want to focus in on my efforts. So then my second movement here, I'm going to be doing a seated press. And this lift seems to have a few different names. I know it as a seated shoulder press with no back support. So that's just where you sit at the edge of the bench, pressing the bar overhead with nothing holding up your back. Some people call that a Z press. I always thought a Z press had to be on the floor with your feet out in front of you. That's what it was back in my day. But either way, we'll just say seated press, no support is what I'm going to call it. And with that, we're going to go ahead and use that C-Bum inspired max effort that I posted up a while back, where it's a heavy set of 5, repeat the weight first, and then try to get 8. Drop the load by 20% and do max reps, trying to get 10 to 12. And then every time that second set meets or exceeds 8 reps, add weight. Nice and simple approach there. We'll start with 120 and then drop 20%. That's 24. So be 95 right there. And we'll keep that up for 3 weeks. And then I'm going to change the press out. And the reason I want to do that is, oh yeah, no, it's true, Derek. Big Z said that he never actually did them, but that's just how it goes, right? I've heard it called an L-sit floor press is probably a more correct term. From what I understood, he had written the workout for a client where they were supposed to do a seated no support press, and they misunderstood it to be the L-sit floor press or the Z press as we all colloquially know it by today. So it's one of those things where got a little lost in translation. But as Zydrunas Savickas himself was good, it's good. Build strong shoulders. Nice, right? He was always just such a character, that individual. All right, so seated no support press there for the first 3 weeks. And then for the next 3 weeks, again, because I'm still running a conjugate adjacent template here, I'll rotate that movement out. And I'm probably going to turn this into a push press for the next 3 weeks. And I'll still use that C-Bum inspired methodology. And we're going to make that the axle. Now, the reason why we're going to use an axle here is the axle is really good for helping improve basic leg drive mechanics. And I like learning leg drive on the axle and then transferring it over to the log rather than trying to learn leg drive and everything all at once on the log. This will just help with my skill a little bit later in the game. We'll go ahead and keep that C-Bum inspired wave there too, just because it's nice and simple. And then in the last wave, we are not going to be going overhead. Reason why is at this point in the game, everything's going to be so friggin' heavy and I'm probably going to be pretty exhausted. After I do my log work, I'm probably not going to have the stomach or any desire to do more standing pressing work. So we're going to swap that out for something a little more fun and also to help overload my triceps to maximize my stability in the lockout at overhead. So we're going to do a neutral grip floor press here instead. And the weights, obviously, I will figure those, I'll cross that bridge when I get to them. So that will be how we go about it there with upper max effort day. All right, we got 1, 2, 3 Turkish get-ups. So we can squeeze in a couple more movements here. I'll have a day off between upper max effort and lower developmental day. Let's go ahead, we'll just throw in some face pulls and tricep press downs. Little arm isolation definitely would not impede me at all. With these, I'll probably just throw them onto rest pause. Because at this point, I'm going to be friggin' tired in this workout, right? I'll have done Turkish get-ups. I'll have done 2 fairly heavy presses. Well, technically a jerk and a press, but whatever. So there we go. Nice and simple. Again, nothing too crazy here. And with the Turkish get-ups, I'm going to play with that, but I'm thinking I might just use a basic linear progression here, 5 by 1, 1 each side, and try to go a little bit heavier each week. Maybe have it where for the first round, it's all the same weight, and every week, the last round gets a little heavier, then the second to last round gets a little bit heavier. So just a slow, steady, durable progression. Because again, this isn't a one-to-one transference situation. I'm doing something just to build resiliency in weird and awkward positions for my sandbag 2 shoulder. All right, there we go. All right, lower developmental day. I already talked about the camber bar box squat and my methodology there. I talked about the yoke run. Now, I have T-bar rows in there as I finally figured out a good T-bar row setup, and T-bar rows are amazing for developing your lower back isometrically, as well as building up your mid-back, your lats, and your upper back. Just all around a great exercise, very easy to set up. But before I do my T-bar rows, I'm going to do some pull-ups. And I'm going to do that with the density protocol from Conjugate Calisthenics, because again, I'll have worked 2 movements that really load my spine quite a bit. So getting that vertical pull is going to stretch out my low back, help me feel better. And if I've got a little lat fatigue going into the T-bar, I'm not that concerned, to be honest. And the reason being I can use a little more body English. I want the T-bar row to be kind of ugly, kind of heavy, because I'm just doing it to build that gnarly rigidity and solidity in my midline so I'm not folding under the damn yoke or folding when I'm carrying the freaking Husafell, right? Pull up density protocol, T-bar, we're just gonna rest pause that again. And then after that, since the setting's already set up, I'll throw some long handles on there and do T-bar shrugs after to hit my traps a little more. Hopefully I can get those a little thicker. That'll make it so the yoke has a bit more purchase, a bit more place to sit, so it's not as miserable on me. And then that should also help with my overhead stability as well, not to mention my upper back positioning in the deadlift. And then let's see how many we got here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 movements. Let's go ahead and throw in a reverse hyper here, just to stretch out my low back, feel a little better, get some glute blood flow. Let's see. All right, upper developmental. We got the log. We got the dips. We're using the density progression out of Conjugate Calisthenics again. Reason being, next year I actually am thinking about competing at Street Lifting Nationals. So with that in mind, I want to start getting really good at calisthenics now. And the dip has helped me improve my bench, and my press is already near all-time best levels, and I've only been training it a couple of weeks, so the dips have had a ton of transference there. Aces. Then after that, let's go ahead here. I want to put in some more rear delt work. I think I'm just going to add another round of face pulls again. Actually, no, instead of face pulls, let's do rear delt swings for very high reps, say 2 sets of 20 to 30. That's going to get a really good pump, hit the rear delts nicely. And, with this workout coming on Friday, I'm probably going to be a little tired. So I don't want to do anything that's going to require a lot of fancy setup, breakdown. Just kind of want to put my head down and go to work. And then we will do howling 30s on this day. Now the howling 30, if you followed me for any amount of time, it's something that I blatantly stole from Steve Shaw and then adapted. So what it is you sit down with your dumbbells. On your bench, you're going to do 3 overhead extensions and then 3 seated press. And you just keep going back and forth until you hit 30 total reps. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth. We'll do 2 rounds of 30 on the howling 30s. Not very complicated there, but definitely something that I think will help just get me a bit more tricep strength. Now, as I look out at this program, I'm honestly pretty darn happy with it. It looks like fun. I might change out the axle push press though. That might just turn into an axle strict press, or it could wind up being a floor press. I'm going to earmark that to see how my recovery feels based off of the first 3 weeks where my back is at. This is my first Strongman show in a couple years, and I just want to make sure that I recover well enough that I'm not cooked going into it, because the last thing I want to do is show up competition day, get hurt, or put in a performance that I'm not happy with. And in terms of my goals on everything here, the log, I really want to get 260. I think that's a good, reasonable target for me at this point in the game. 280 is definitely dreaming a big dream, but hey, we do like big dreams. I think it was the great Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare, who once said, have a dream so big it's someone else's nightmare. And he's still WWE champion, and he better hold that belt for a long time. Deadlift medley, I'll be blunt, I want to win this event. I think this is an event I will do very well at. In terms of rep counts, I have to see how it's going to shake out the day of. But realistically speaking, especially knowing that I can gain a little weight going into this competition, I feel good. Yoke run. This is going to be another one where I just don't want to lose too many points because I don't have access to the real kit. But my saving grace there is the way I'm training it is very intelligent. I think it's going to control my fatigue nicely. And those strap yokes are tough. So by the time I'm on a real yoke, it's going to feel a lot more stable versus the strap yoke. There's just something to be said for the rigidity of that versus the fabric swinging arms. They're janky. Farmers to Husafelt, I feel really good on this one as well. Farmers Walk has always been a bread and butter event for me, and I do well on front carries thanks to all the front squats and Zercher squats I tend to do in the off season. And then sandbag to shoulder, this is the wild card event. I have no friggin' idea how this is going to go. I just want to not get last, and I'll be happy. Big goal for me at this show is I want to finish on the podium. I have not competed in Strongman for over 2 years. The last show I did, I wound up having to withdraw because I got hurt. Worst run show I've ever been at, by the way. But that's all I'm going to say on that one. And I'm thinking that with this one, I'm going to have to figure out some sort of charity thing I want to do with it. I'll figure out exactly what that is. It coming up around October, I'll probably wind up looking into doing some sort of thing where I sponsor a family for Thanksgiving, where maybe the higher on the podium I place, the more families I'm going to try and sponsor. That way, again, it's that mental game of now I'm not just lifting for my trophy case or for my ego, but if I do better, now I get to help more people out. And that's always something that I think is a worthy consideration. And if I'm in the position that I can do that, just, growing the business, this and that, plug, that's going to be great. I think no matter what, I want to help people for Thanksgiving, but this ties something into it. The competition's called Scary Strong, and the scary reality is it's hard for a lot of families out there. And if we, as the strength community, can help make things better for others, I think it's our moral imperative to. I've been blessed with a lot of great opportunities in my life, a lot of great people. I'm thankful for all of you here on the chat today, sincerely. Love being able to do these. And I think, if not for the kindness of some people who I've met in my life growing up, I wouldn't be doing this. So it's important to try and carry that on and do good for others in this world. All right, there's my little moralizing message. Hopefully you guys didn't think, Mark's gone woke, this is terrible, Strongman, more like soy man. But this looks like a really good program overall. I like this. Of course, I'm going to play with it a little bit. That's the nature of coaching and training. I am my own worst client. But I feel pretty good about this overall, and I'm still letting me chase that 635 before max deadlift. See here, last year there was a costume contest. I've got two right off the bat. I could throw on, I've got an All Might suit from My Hero Academia. You could just call me Small Might. That'd be pretty fun. Otherwise, what I'll do is, I could do an ugly sweater and just put a mirror on the front. So I'm like, oh, look, it's a hideous sweater. And then you look at it and it's a freaking mirror. I think that'd be pretty funny, nice and petty. Let's see, what else could I do for costumes? I got a top hat. There's that. So I've got a few different options. I think I actually still have my American flag Speedo. Maybe I should wear that for weigh-ins. Wait, do they allow suits on the deadlift? I need to know. Let's see here. Athlete. It doesn't say anything about a suit. So that's what I should, that's what I need to do at the rules meeting. I should just bring my America flag Speedo. I'm like, do you guys allow suits on the deadlift? And if they say yes, just hold up the suit and see how mad the promoter gets at me when I threaten the idea of me wearing a American flag Speedo. I mean, hey, I didn't say it was a deadlift suit. I just asked if they allowed suits, right? We'll see how that goes over. I might get punched. Who knows? But yeah, that is a good overview, I think, of how I'm going to go about dissecting my approach to Scary Strong. I do think a podium finish is in the realm of possibility for me, which would be very exciting after all this time away. The field that I've seen so far, they're all really good athletes. I don't think you can really predict any given event except for the press right now. And that's because the guy, Daniel, I'm just going to say his name, Daniel Price, cystic fibrosis strongman. He is a really good human being. He is really good at the split jerk, really efficient. I do think he will win the press. But, you know, the saying is win the press, win the show. I'd like to prove that wrong. Alrighty, chat. Are there any other questions for me before I sign off today? Also, Will, you know, I've got a program out there that's a commercial gym strongman program. I'll have to take care of that. I'm not going to put out another version of commercial gym strongman program in... Oh, actually, this month I'm going to do that, so I'll keep you in mind. I'm going to be competing in the 220-pound weight class. Right now, I'm walking around at about 205, so I can definitely gain a little weight going into this show. I don't want to gain too much. Reason being, after this, I do actually want to lose weight. I want to get down to the point where I'm walking around at about 190 or so. I just feel better there. I feel like I look a little better there, but... This competition comes one day after I'm announcing at a powerlifting meet, so I don't want to do a water cut and do the 181 class because, you know, to be blunt, I'm being paid to MC, and if I do a bad job, that's a great way to not get MCing jobs anymore, and I really like MCing. It's really fun. So there was a different show I was going to do originally, but that one wound up getting moved to the same day that I'm MCing. This one is the day after, so if it works out, it's going to make for a fun weekend. You know, I think I need to do, you remember that old meme? It was like, get you a man who can do it all. Like Instagram, LinkedIn, Tinder, Facebook, I think was like the four like websites, like it's 4 different pictures. So the Facebook picture would obviously be me ready for the Strongman show. LinkedIn would be the shot of me all done up MCing, right? Tinder, absolutely not. I have a wonderful partner in my life. Last thing I want to do is be found shot dead and buried under a tree by her family when they see that I was stepping out. Plus, honestly, she's great. She's wonderful. She's so patient with me. And then Facebook, Instagram. Oh, yeah. And then Instagram, you know, I've already got my picture on there, so no worries. Okay. Anything else, chat? All right, well, that doesn't seem to be the case. So thank you all so much for joining in. This was a really fun live. You know, I think I'm slowly figuring out how to do these things. I'm going to keep working at it. Eventually, I'm going to be great at these lives. I'm getting a little bit better every time, right? And hey, thank you, everyone. Y'all have a great rest of your Sunday. And that'll do it for now. Take care.